What if an unstoppable army could appear out of nowhere, moving faster than any force in history, erasing entire cities before the world even understood what was happening? In the early 13th century, that nightmare became real for the lands of the Rus. The story begins far from the forests and rivers of Eastern Europe, deep in the vast, unforgiving steppe of Central Asia. There, under the leadership of Genghis Khan, a new kind of war machine was born. It was not just an army. It was a system built on speed, discipline, and fear. Every soldier was a skilled horse archer. Every unit moved with precision. Communication was fast, orders were clear, and hesitation was punished. By the 1220s, the Mongols had already crushed powerful empires across Asia. Cities that resisted were burned. Armies that stood against them were destroyed. But Europe still felt distant, untouched, safe behind its forests, rivers, and divided kingdoms. That illusion began to crack in 1223 at the Battle of the Kalka River. A coalition of Rus princes joined forces with nomadic allies to confront a Mongol scouting force. Confident in their numbers, they advanced without coordination. The Mongols, however, did something unfamiliar. They retreated. It looked like fear. It was actually strategy. For days, the Rus army chased them across open land, stretching their lines, breaking their unity. Then, suddenly, the Mongols turned. What followed was a massacre. The disorganized coalition was surrounded and crushed. Leaders were captured, soldiers slaughtered. It was a warning, a glimpse of what was coming. But after the battle, the Mongols disappeared back into the east. For over a decade, silence followed. Many in the Rus lands believed the danger had passed. They were wrong. In 1237, the storm returned. This time not as a raid, but as a full-scale invasion led by Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan. His mission was clear: conquer the western lands, break resistance, and expand the Mongol Empire into Europe. The first target was the Principality of Ryazan. When Mongol envoys arrived demanding submission and tribute, the response was defiance. According to chronicles, the reply was simple: when we are gone, you can take everything. The Mongols did not negotiate twice. They attacked with overwhelming force. Siege engines battered the walls. Arrows darkened the sky. Within days, Ryazan fell. The city was burned, its population slaughtered or enslaved. It was not just conquest. It was a message, and the message spread quickly. From Ryazan, the Mongol army moved like fire through dry grass. Town after town fell. Kolomna, Moscow, Vladimir. Each battle followed a terrifying pattern. Demand submission, destroy resistance, move on without slowing down. The speed was unbelievable. Mongol riders could travel vast distances in days, living off the land, switching horses to maintain relentless momentum. There were no long pauses, no traditional campaign seasons. Winter did not stop them. In fact, winter became their advantage. Frozen rivers turned into highways. Forests that once protected cities became pathways for invasion. The Mongols adapted to every condition, turning the environment itself into a weapon. One of the most devastating moments came with the fall of Vladimir in 1238. Once a powerful center of the Rus, it stood as a symbol of resistance. But even strong walls could not withstand Mongol siege tactics. Fire, precision attacks, and relentless pressure broke the city. The Grand Prince fled. The city burned. By now, fear had taken hold across the region. News traveled fast. Cities erased, armies defeated. No mercy for those who resisted. But the Rus princes still struggled with one fatal weakness: division. Instead of uniting, they fought separately. Each city defended itself. Each army acted alone. And alone, they were vulnerable. The Mongols exploited this perfectly. They avoided large unified battles unless they controlled the conditions. They used feigned retreats, ambushes, and psychological warfare. Sometimes they released survivors intentionally, so that stories of destruction would spread ahead of them. Fear became their ally. By 1240, only one great city remained: Kiev. Kiev was not just another city. It was the heart of the Rus, a center of culture, religion, and political identity. Its golden domes and strong walls stood as a symbol of history and pride. But symbols do not stop armies. When the Mongols arrived, they demanded surrender. Kiev refused. The siege began. Mongol forces surrounded the city, cutting off all escape. Siege engines were assembled. Day after day, they bombarded the walls. Defenders fought desperately, holding their ground as long as they could. But the outcome was inevitable. The walls were breached. What followed was one of the darkest moments in medieval Eastern European history. The city was overwhelmed. Fires consumed buildings. Streets turned into battlegrounds. Civilians fled, hid, or fought. But there was no escape. Kiev fell. Once a thriving center of power, it was reduced to ruins. Chroniclers described devastation so complete that the city would take generations to recover. And with that, the age of Kievan Rus effectively came to an end. The Mongols did not occupy every city directly. Instead, they established control through tribute and authority, creating what would later be known as the Golden Horde. Rus princes were allowed to rule, but only if they submitted, paid tribute, and acknowledged Mongol supremacy. This system reshaped the region. Political power shifted. Trade routes changed. Cities that survived adapted to a new reality, one defined by external control and internal survival. But the impact went deeper than politics. The invasion changed how war was understood in Europe. The Mongols demonstrated a level of coordination, mobility, and strategy that seemed almost unstoppable. They proved that speed could defeat size, and discipline could overcome numbers. And perhaps most importantly, they showed the cost of division. Because the Rus lands did not fall simply because the Mongols were strong. They fell because they stood alone. Yet history is never only about destruction. From the ruins, new powers would eventually rise. Moscow, once a minor town, would grow under Mongol influence and later challenge it. The memory of invasion would shape military strategy, political unity, and cultural identity for centuries. But in those years between 1237 and 1240, none of that future was visible. There was only fire, speed, and fear. An army that moved like the wind, a force that struck before anyone could prepare, and a world that realized, too late, that war had changed forever. Because the Mongol invasion of Kievan Rus was not just another campaign. It was a turning point. A moment when an unstoppable force met a divided land and rewrote the destiny of an entire region.